education. And I know we covered the infrastructure needs in terms of education, but my state and my county, I represent the 6th and I think the 3rd largest school districts in the country, Miami-Dade and Broward counties. And just in the last year, Miami-Dade County, for example, had to cut $89 million out of their budget, their school budget. My own county, the county that I live in, Broward, had to cut in the last 2 years $128 million. They are facing hiring freezes, potential layoffs of teachers, and you know, for me, being a mom of 3 school-age children, it's a very present, day-to-day issue that I think is incredibly important. Children only go around once. I mean, once they go through the 13 years of their education, if they aren't in a well-funded, high-quality educational environment, they don't get a second chance at it. So what I wanted to ask you is, obviously, I'm sure your states are facing a similar situation on the operations side of education. How are you compensating for those cuts? What are you doing? And do you think, and how do you think we can include the operations side of educational challenges in economic stimulus?
Well, the specific request of the National Governors Association is for 2 parts of a stimulus recovery package. One, the infrastructure support, and secondly, some support for Medicaid, which is a state-federal shared responsibility and one whose caseload continues to rise. And speaking from my perspective, without the additional support for that safety net program, support for K-12 education is more vulnerable in the budgetary process than it otherwise would be. Basically, I look at the budget in Vermont this way. About a quarter of it is Medicaid, about a quarter of it is K-12 education, and then there's everything else. And since it's such a significant part of what we do, it's going to be very vulnerable at a time of fiscal stress. So I think that's why the support for the budget in our FMAP participation rate is critical in order to minimize the impact on public education.
Thank you.
In Wisconsin, far more than 25% is K-12 education. We, at the state level, we fund 2/3 of the cost of public education in the state. And so when you look at the 17% budget deficit, you just can't stay away from our biggest item. We have provided so far, in fact, our schools have gotten a slight 2 to 3% increase in the fiscal biennium that we're in right now. And we did it, frankly, by making huge cuts in other places, because this just has been my priority. But I believe we're at a point in Wisconsin that, given this deficit, without help that comes in some ways, that education will suffer. And I would suggest again that this is probably our federal state most important investment that we are making right now, and that again, in Wisconsin, the way you would do that is if our budget we can deal with it, then education is going to be my #1 priority, and we're going to protect it. And that's really why we need help badly on the operating budget side. I've told our educators, look, you're going to have to be part of this. It's not like it's going to be wonderful times for school districts. There aren't going to be big increases and big new programs and all of these things. But what we're going to try to do is get through this recession that we are in and will be in a way that does not do harm and long-term harm. And I agree with you completely. On these kids, this is their chance, and if they're not well educated, and I made the comment earlier, don't want to repeat it, but just remember, this country was built, the World War was won, and the country was built by people who got educated in the middle of the Great Depression. So our grandparents and great-grandparents were willing to make this investment in terrible times, and we have to make it, and we need federal help in order to make that investment.
Thank you.
I think that education is the #1 priority, along with public safety, that we have to address. And while we can't ask you all to fill all the gaps that any individual state has, Some basic support, some of that comes through FMAP, through displacement. If we help out on the Medicaid side, then the money that you didn't spend there is available for education, and some people would argue that's where it is. I would rather be direct about some kind of block grant that, even if it was limited for education purposes, that would sustain these budgets through these difficult times. That's one person's view, not speaking for anybody but myself. I know that there are a number of governors that would prefer no attachments. As far as I'm concerned, FMAT and then some kind of help within the education arena is the direction I would recommend with regard to the operating side, acknowledging that we're going to have to take up some of this problem on our own actions in our state levels.
Well, Governor, count two people for that plan. I couldn't agree with you more, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.